guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here for my October releases video, and I feel like I need to just like skip all intros and jump right into this because there are so many books coming out in October. It's obscene. So if you guys are new here, I basically go through the really big releases that are coming out at the beginning of the video and the release date, and then I get into 5 of kind of these smaller titles that I happen to be very excited about and curious to see what people think of them. So I'm just gonna jump into the sequels, the big titles, and then get into those. Obviously, first things first, the 2 huge titles that everybody is going to be reading and talking about in October is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. The last Throne of Glass book is coming on October 23rd, and I don't think the world is ready. Like, I don't think anybody is prepared for this book. We are also getting Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, the sequel to Strange the Dreamer. I feel like this is an equally huge book with a huge following. This is coming on October 2nd, so like very, very soon, and I'm so excited. It is beautiful. I can't wait for this story. Also on October 2nd, we have The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This is, I don't think it's technically a sequel, but like a companion novel to The Gentleman's Guide for Vice and Virtue, which was a blast. It's like historical fiction, but it's very lighthearted and fun, and it was just such a joy to read. So that is also coming on October 2nd, as well as Map of Days by Ransom Riggs, the 4th Miss Peregrine's book. I didn't know there was gonna be a 4th one. I don't think a lot of people knew either, but there it is. On October 16th, we are getting Wind Rider by PC Cast, which I haven't heard many things about the series. I believe the series is called Tales of a New World, and the covers are stunning, but I haven't heard much in ways of reviews, and I'd like to read them, so maybe I'll add them to the list. But if you guys have read these, let me know down in the comments and what you think of them. On October 9th, we are getting the sequel to The Last Magician called The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. We have The Darkest Star coming up by Jennifer L. Armentrout on October 30th, and this is a continuation, but more of like a spin-off book from the Lux series. If you guys remember back in the day how popular the Lux series was with her, I believe this is going to be following the brother that was not very present in the Lux series. It's going to be his backstory and continuation, I believe. I'm very excited, but I'm confused because the covers aren't even close to matching. Like, I feel like they should look somewhat relevant to each other. I don't know. We shall see. And another surprise release for me is another book from David Levithan called Someday, and this is the 3rd book in the Everyday series. I didn't know this one was continuing either. I feel like I was just in the dark for a lot of these sequels, but this is coming on October 2nd. Moving on to just big author releases, we have What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli, which has been like the dream duo for so many people who read contemporary. I love that they are just besties in real life. They're super good friends, and everybody has been waiting for them to team up together to write an awesome, probably heartbreaking, queer, contemporary type story. I've heard amazing things about it. So October 9th is when we can get our hands on this one. Also on October 9th, we can get Blanca and Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. I still have yet to read her. I know I feel like I've said that a lot, but she is pretty much like the queen of magical realism. She's a lot of people's favorite author in that genre. I've heard her writing is breathtaking. From what I hear, this is her best book yet. And a lot of people who don't even really read that much magical realism are saying that this is one of the best books of 2018, so I'm very excited to get my hands on this. Also have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa on October 2nd. I'm very intrigued by this one. It's another Asian-inspired fantasy story, which I am so digging right now, so I'm so excited for that. So on October 2nd, we have Boneless Mercies by April Genevieve Teholke, which is one of my favorite authors. I love Wink Puppy Midnight. I just adore her books, and from what I hear, this is like a gender-flipped retelling of Beowulf. I'm so intrigued by that. Okay, moving in to titles that I actually want to talk about and discuss and get you guys excited for. On October 30th, we are getting The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta. This is one of the most intriguing fantasies that's coming out this year for me. So I think that this is going to blend fantasy with Italian mafia-styled settings with really unique magic and gender-fluid identity characters. So in this world, we have 5 ruling families that are kind of like mafia bosses. And our protagonist is Theodora, who is the daughter of one of these leading families. And she has the secret magical ability to turn all of her and her family's enemies into decorative objects. That would be really useful, to be completely honest, but this has to be a hidden magic. It's very secret. No one is allowed to possess this magic, as is true in most fantasy stories. So the plot takes off when the king of this land sends out poisoned letters to all of the heads of these 5 families. Theodora's father falls sick from one of these poisoned letters, so she takes it upon herself to like travel to the capital to like find a cure or find out what's going on or overthrow the government, who knows, but she can only do that if she presents herself as a son. So she uses her abilities to kind of transform herself literally into a boy. On these journeys, she runs into Cielo. This is a person who has the magical ability to literally flip between male and female, just fluidly, can just do it. From what I gather, this book really explores identity, gender fluidity, and just queer romances and topics and discussion in general. So I love seeing that introduced to a fantasy story along with some mafia influence and like family rivalry influence. It sounds so fun. All of the reviews that I've read so far have been amazing, so I can't wait to get my hands on this. It's at the very, very end of October, so we got a while to go. The next book I want to talk about is The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Weymouth. First of all, look at this cover. It's stunning. It's amazing. This is coming on October 23rd, and it sounds great. And I feel like this is going to appeal to a lot of you guys who have similar taste to me, where this book is going to come with content warnings and trigger warnings. So let me give you the plot real quick, and then I'll get into the content warnings that accompany it. This is taking place in kind of like a fantasy London world where a lot of bombings are taking place, and 5 years prior to the start of the story, a very intense bombing happened, and we are following two sisters who were in a bomb shelter during this bombing, Evelyn and Philippa, and somehow they managed to escape not only from the bombings, but from London in general. Something happened during this that put them into this fantasy magical world called the Woodlands. And it sounds amazing, sounds like there's a lot of like magical exotic creatures. It sounds like the perfect setting for a book for me. But they do eventually find a way back to get to London, and Evelyn is not dealing with that well. She sounds like she is going through severe depression and suicidal thoughts and just trying to do anything she can do to escape reality and get back to this magical land that she came from. So this is giving me hints of the Wayward Children series. If you guys have read that, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where it's dealing with people after they've come back from a magical world and reacclimating to reality again. So it kind of sounds like that, and it sounds like it's going to be very dark. Meanwhile, Philippa, the other sister, is just trying to escape her past, forget that that ever happened, and live like an amazing life in America, and she is just moving forward. But when Evelyn disappears, Philippa kind of has to find out what happened to her sister, if she managed to get back to the Woodlands, or if she took her life, or just did something in general that we don't know. Well, obviously, this is going to have very strong content warnings for self-harm, severe depression, suicidal ideation, grief, eating disorders. It's going to be a long list. There is a link on the author's website that takes you to the content warnings for this book. You wouldn't really know it from the cover because it looks kind of like a fluffy fantasy story, but I have a feeling it's going to get really dark. I'm kind of intrigued by it, and I know a lot of you guys think the same way that I do, so maybe you guys will also pick it up. The next book that I'm really excited about is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Claire Legrand just wrote Furyborn, so a ton of you guys are on her like fan bandwagon right now. So this is going to be a very different story. It's not going to be like high fantasy or anything like that. This, I think, is going to have very mysterious, eerie, ominous, Halloween-y type vibes. From what I'm getting from the synopsis, it's going to be a little ominous. So this comes on October 2nd, so we definitely have like Halloween season to read it, but this is taking place on this like mysterious island that has this unidentified evil monstrous type thing on it where girls have been going missing for decades. Enter our three protagonists, who are Marion, Zoe, and Val. These three girls could not be more different from each other, personality-wise, home life-wise. They are just very, very different, but they find themselves on this island and they are united by it. And it seems like they are going to confront this evil head on. That's really all you get from the synopsis, and it seems like the type of story that you just need to read and have it unravel before you. It sounds awesome. I've heard that kind of borders on like magical realism, where the island almost turns into a character itself with like things that it does, which kind of gives me like Lost vibes, where mysterious things happen on this island that are unexplained, where it takes on its own persona. I'm so excited for it. I've heard mixed things. I think a lot of that is just because it's a very like unique type of story, so it may sit well with some, but not with others. I'm so excited to get my hands on this, so very, very soon, October 2nd is when you can get this one. Also on October 2nd, we are getting Dry by Neil Shusterman and his son, Jared Shusterman, which I'm so intrigued by. So I was going to include this in the list of like just big release authors, but I really just wanted to talk about it because Neil Shusterman has been one of my favorite authors for years now. So this is kind of a dystopian apocalyptic type story. It's not post-apocalyptic, like the world is ending currently in the story, but it's set in a world that is under a very severe drought, and people have to live a very strict lifestyle with very strict regulations with water conservation, like nobody can water their lawns, nobody can wash their cars, and then one day the taps run dry. and basically all hell breaks loose. We are following Alyssa as our protagonist, and she lives in a neighborhood where all of her neighbors and all of her like childhood friends just start turning on each other because you need water to live, and it turns into a very serious situation really fast when her parents don't come home one day and she has to learn how to survive on her own and how to take care of her brother. This sounds very reminiscent of Not a Drop to Drink by Minnie McGinnis, which I actually just read recently and I loved it. But that's kind of a somewhat dated YA story, so I'm very intrigued to see how Neal Shusterman and Jared Shusterman deal with this story, because I feel like it's kind of a story that's been done before, but Neal Shusterman is kind of bringing dystopian back into the game. Like, Scythe was one of the most, like, revolutionary dystopian stories in years, so I'm so excited to see his take on this, because he introduces so many thought-provoking things that come with dystopian stories. So I can't wait for this. The last book that I want to talk about is called Quiver by Julia Watts. This comes on October 16th, and this sounds like my type of story. It sounds very dark and culturally controversial, I think. This is set in rural Tennessee, where we are following a society that takes on a very, very strict evangelical Christian lifestyle, where it's extremely patriarchal. Women's role is pretty much to provide as many children as God allows, because children are the arrows that fill God's quiver of righteous warriors. So, hence where the title comes from, hence where the extreme belief comes from. So basically, the woman's role is to provide children to the family, and the men's role is to be the leader and the influencer over the whole society. So it's a very kind of backwards, old-fashioned religious belief. So we are following Libby, who has grown up in this lifestyle, when new neighbors move in next to them, and these are just people who just moved into this area with no prior knowledge of the belief system of this neighborhood. They just wanted to live a more slow-paced, rural lifestyle. They didn't know what they were getting into. With them comes their child named Zoe, who is a gender-fluid type character. So Libby meets Zoe, and their friendship obviously starts to blossom, and I'm sure it's going to start to change Libby's view on life, and it's going to probably be very pivotal and controversial in the story. I am so intrigued by this because I feel like gender fluidity, obviously I talked about it in another book in this video, it's starting to be very present in a lot of books, and I love how it's being explored and that it's being explored in all genres. So this one I think is going to be very hard-hitting. It sounds amazing. It already won an award, and I hadn't even heard of it until I started researching for this video. It sounds amazing. So the middle of the month is when we can get this one. October 16th is its release day, and you better believe that I'm going to be reading and talking about it in my videos. So that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully I kept that somewhat concise, because I feel like there are just so many titles coming in October. It's gonna be bananas. I'm gonna be reading so many books. There's so many good books coming out. The ending of the Throne of Glass series is gonna just kind of take over the YA community for a small portion of October, so prepare yourselves for that. But there's also some other amazing titles that are coming out that I'm very excited for. So if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, because I make these every single month, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching them, and I'll see you in my next one.